In the beginning, before justice wore a robe and vengeance had a name, there were curses. Ancient, primal, unrelenting. Not cast by witches in the dead of night, not whispered over cauldrons or inked in forgotten books, but spoken by gods, immortal, furious, divine. In Greek mythology, curses were not tricks or spells, they were sentences, declarations. Fate itself being rewritten not with mercy, but with absolute intent. You see, the Greek gods were not forgiving. They were magnificent, yes, but also terrifying. When they blessed, they gave fireflight music love. But when they cursed, they made nightmares eternal. And among the mortals and monsters who walked beneath Mount Olympus, none suffered more than those marked by these divine dooms. It begins, as all dark tales must, with the house of Atreus, a bloodline so twisted, so drenched in betrayal, that every generation seemed born only to suffer the curse laid upon the one before it. But the curse didn't begin with Atreus. It began with Tantalus. Tantalus was once beloved by the gods, a king so favored that he was invited to dine with Olympus itself. Imagine it, mortality seated beside immortality, a man who drank with Hera, laughed with Apollo, walked the golden halls of the divine. But power without respect is poison. And Tantalus, in a moment of unspeakable pride and cruelty, decided to test the gods, to see if they were truly all-knowing. He killed his own son, Pelops, chopped the boy into pieces, cooked him into a stew, and served it to the gods at their feast. But the gods knew. One by one, they recoiled, every god, except Demeter, distracted by her grief for Persephone, who absent-mindedly ate a piece of the boy's shoulder. The feast was stopped. Pelops was restored to life with a shoulder of ivory to replace the one consumed. But Tantalus was damned. His curse was not death, it was thirst, hunger, eternal aching longing. He was cast into the deepest part of Tartarus, where he stood in a pool of water beneath a tree heavy with fruit. Yet when he bent to drink, the water receded. When he reached for the fruit, the branches pulled away, forever desiring, forever denied. His name lives on in our own language to tantalize, but his story was only the seed. Pelops lived, married, had sons, and that should have been the end of the darkness. But blood remembers. Pelops cursed his own servant Myrtilus, who had helped him win his bride through trickery, only to be betrayed and thrown into the sea. As Myrtilus died, he cursed Pelops and all his descendants. That curse followed his children. Atreus and Thyestes, sons of Pelops, fought for the throne of Mycenae. And when Thyestes seduced Atreus's wife, Atreus did not just take revenge, he repeated history. He slaughtered Thyestes' sons, cooked their flesh into a feast, and fed it to their father without his knowledge. Only after the meal was finished did Atreus reveal the truth. Thyestes screamed, vomited, howled, and then he cursed Atreus. This curse passed like a torch soaked in oil, igniting generation after generation until it burned into the hearts of Agamemnon, Clytemnestra, Orestes, Electra, a dynasty of murder, vengeance, madness, fathers killing daughters, wives stabbing husbands, sons hunted by furies for crimes they were born into. They tried to escape it. They tried to outrun the blood, but the gods do not forget. And neither do the curses they allow to root. Yet not all curses were born of arrogance. Some were born of sorrow, like the curse of Medusa. You know her as the monster with snakes for hair, the one whose gaze turns men to stone. But that is the myth told by the victors, the gods. The real story, older, darker, begins not with monsters, but with beauty. Medusa was once a maiden of unmatched grace, a priestess of Athena sworn to chastity, to worship, to serve. Her hair was like woven gold, her eyes calm seas beneath starlight, and her devotion was absolute. But Poseidon, god of the sea, saw her, and as so many gods did, he wanted what he saw. He followed her into Athena's temple, and there under sacred stone he violated her, desecrated not just her body, but the temple itself. And Athena, cold and unyielding, punished Medusa, not Poseidon. She transformed the maiden's beauty into horror. Her hair became serpents. Her eyes cursed with petrification. No man could look upon her again without turning to stone. Was it protection? Was it cruelty? Either way, the curse was absolute. Medusa fled to the ends of the world where she was hunted, feared, hated. Not for what she did, but for what was done to her. And when Perseus came armed with divine tools and golden destiny, he did not kill a monster. He killed a woman cursed by the gods who had failed her. And from her blood, Pegasus was born. Even in death, Medusa gave life. That's the thing about curses. Sometimes they create the very things they were meant to destroy. But not all cursed were once pure. Some earned their fate, like Narcissus. He was beautiful, so beautiful that even the gods admired him. So beautiful that he was cursed never to find someone who could match his reflection until he saw it. A pool, still, shining. His own face cast in perfect light. And he loved it. He couldn't look away. He wasted into nothing, staring forever into himself. And in his place grew a flower. The narcissus, lovely, fragile, fragrant, but hollow inside. He was cursed not by a god, but by his own vanity. And then, there is Oedipus, a king cursed before he was born. The oracle had spoken he would kill his father and marry his mother. So his parents tried to escape fate. They bound his feet and left him to die. But he survived, was raised by strangers. And when he grew old enough to learn the prophecy, he fled the people he thought were his parents. And on the road, he killed a man unaware it was his real father. He came to Thebes, saved the city from the Sphinx, and married the queen, his mother. They had children. They ruled in peace, until the truth came, and Oedipus tore out his eyes. Jocasta hanged herself. The children born of a cursed union suffered their own fates. This was not a curse spoken aloud. This was a prophecy, but prophecy in Greek myth was another kind of curse. You could try to avoid it, run from it. But the act of fleeing would only lead you straight into its arms. Because in the world of Greek myth, knowledge itself is dangerous. To know one's future is to walk a path already laid in stone. And the more you resist it, the deeper your footprints sink into the inevitable. The gods offered mortals truth, but truth came laced with tragedy. And those cursed by prophecy were the most doomed of all. We think of curses as dark magic, as punishment. But in ancient Greece, curses were often justice, cosmic correction. And they didn't just punish, they taught. They warned of hubris, of betrayal, of desire unchecked. But above all, they taught that the gods were watching, always. And their silence was never indifference. It was calculation. Their mercy was not kindness. It was the slow tightening of a noose that looked like a gift. And those who fell under their curses, monsters, heroes, innocents, kings, left behind stories that refuse to die. Because the cursed are not forgotten. They live on, in myth, in fear, in the part of every soul that asks, what if I too have angered something I do not understand? The gods in their wrath could strike a mortal down in an instant, but the cruelest curses were never those that ended a life. They were the ones that stretched it, twisted it, forced a soul to keep breathing long after their reason to live had turned to ash. Death is final, but endless motion, endless memory, endless punishment. Those are the marks of the truly damned. And in the world of Greek mythology, few suffer more than those who can never stop suffering. Consider the Danaides, the 50 daughters of Danaus. Their story begins in Egypt with twin brothers Danaus and Aegyptus. One had 50 sons, the other 50 daughters. As politics and bloodlines often do, a union was arranged 50 weddings in one day. But Danaus, mistrustful of his brother, feared treachery. So he gave each of his daughters a dagger, and when the night fell, when the veils were lifted, when the lovers leaned in close to whisper vows and promises, into darkened rooms, 49 of the daughters did as their father commanded. They murdered their husbands in cold blood. Only one Hypermnestra spared her groom, because he had honored her choice, left her untouched, and loved her without force. The rest fulfilled the curse that would outlive them all. When they died, the Danaïdes were cast into the depths of the underworld. There they were sentenced to an impossible task, to carry water in broken jars up a steep hill again and again. But the jars leaked, the water spilled, and no matter how many times they climbed, the basin was never filled. Futility. That was their prison, not chains, not flames, but the unbearable ache of pointless labor. And nearby, pushing his own impossible burden, was Sisyphus. He was not a warrior or a god. He was clever, too clever. The king of Ephyra, later Corinth Sisyphus, outsmarted death not once, but twice. When Thanatos, the god of death, came to take him, Sisyphus tricked him, chained him in his own shackles. And as long as death was bound, no one died. The world grew chaotic. People begged for release, but no soul could cross the threshold. The gods were furious. Eventually Sisyphus was caught, but even in death, he tricked Persephone into letting him return to the living world, just for a moment, just to put things in order. He didn't come back. Finally, when he was dragged back to Hades, the gods gave him a punishment to match his arrogance. His curse to push a boulder up a hill, straining every fiber of his immortal soul. But just as he nears the top, the stone slips, falls, and he must start again, forever. It is not the pain that breaks him, it is the hope. Hope that maybe this time it will stay. But the rock always falls, and so he pushes, day after day, year after year, era after era. A man who tried to cheat death, doomed to feel it with every failure. But worse than being cursed to act is being cursed to feel. To feel memory, guilt, obsession, these are the heaviest chains of all. And no one wore them more cruelly than Orestes, son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. He was born into the cursed house of Atreus, a line already thick with betrayal and blood. His father Agamemnon sacrificed Orestes' sister Iphigenia to appease Artemis before sailing to Troy. When he returned, his wife Clytemnestra, grieving, raging, shattered, killed him in his bath. She had taken a lover, but her weapon was grief, and so Orestes years later was told by the gods, "Avenge your father." He returned to Mycenae, and there he killed his own mother. Patricide was a tragedy. Matricide, an abomination. The gods had demanded it, and yet when it was done, they cursed him for it. The Erinyes, also known as the Furies, rose from the shadows, ancient goddesses of vengeance, older than Olympus itself. They are not beautiful. They are not kind. They are blood and fire and screeching wind's claws that tear the soul eyes that see every sin you thought buried. They chased Orestes across the earth. He ran to Delphi, begged Apollo, who had commanded the act for protection. Apollo shielded him. But even the god of prophecy could not silence the Furies. Finally, Orestes was brought to trial not in the halls of the gods, but in Athens at the Areopagus, where mortal justice and divine consequence collided. Athena presided. The jury was split, and in the tie, Athena cast her vote for mercy. The Furies retreated, not banished, but transformed. They became the Eumenides, the kindly ones. But Orestes, though acquitted, would never be whole again. Because what curse is worse than living with what you've done? The Furies didn't need to scream anymore. He would never unhear them. Madness, then, is a curse all its own. Take Ajax, the great hero of Troy, second only to Achilles in strength and glory. When Achilles fell, his armor was to be passed on, and Ajax, mighty loyal, undefeated in battle, believed it would be his. But the armor went to Odysseus. Pride cracked. Ajax burned inside, and Athena, who favored cleverness over strength, struck him with madness. He thought he was slaying his enemies, but when the blood cleared, he had slaughtered livestock, cattle, goats, beasts, tied in pens. Shame consumed him. He fell on his own sword, and the curse he died thinking he had won. Madness, pride, memory, all forms of curse. And sometimes, the curses came not from the gods but from other mortals, like Pentheus, king of Thebes. He mocked Dionysus, god of wine, ecstasy, and wildness, called him a fraud, banned his rites. Dionysus came to Thebes in disguise. He charmed, he whispered, he turned the king's own curiosity against him. Pentheus dressed as a woman to spy on the Bacchae, Dionysus's wild followers. And when he entered the woods drunk on illusion, his own mother, Agave, under the god's spell, mistook him for a lion. She and the other women tore him apart with their bare hands. When the trance lifted, she saw her son's head in her arms. Dionysus did not lift a finger. The curse had already taken root in arrogance, in doubt, in the need to control what cannot be controlled. These curses did not come with thunder or lightning. They came as decisions, as pride, as one step too far into places the gods had warned mortals not to tread. And yet they tread anyway. Because to be human is to reach, to defy, to touch the flame and think I will not burn, and that is when the gods whisper and curses begin. But not all curses are loud. Some come gently, wrapped in love. Take the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, a musician so gifted his songs softened stone. He loved her, deeply, desperately, but she died. Snakebite, sudden, and Orpheus, mad with grief, journeyed to the underworld, not with sword, but with song. He sang before Hades and Persephone, and for the first time in all of myth the underworld relented. They let her go, on one condition. He must not look back, not until they reached the world of light. And so, he led her, step by step, and just as he reached the threshold, he turned, and she vanished. The curse, his own doubt, a test he could not pass, because love, when soaked in grief, becomes fear. The gods did not curse him. He cursed himself. Because in Greek myth, even the possibility of happiness is fragile. One wrong note, one look, one breath too soon, and it shatters. They call these stories myths. But they're warnings, not about gods, not about monsters, but about us, about how easy it is to damn ourselves, with pride, with fear, with love that becomes obsession, and how curses don't always need gods to begin. Sometimes they begin when we forget that some things must be faced and others must be left alone. Curses, when cast by the gods, do not end with a single life. In Greek mythology, a curse often seeps into the bones of a family, infecting generation after generation, until the original sin is buried beneath a mountain of blood. The Greeks did not believe in coincidence. They believed in consequence. And if you were born into a cursed house, no matter how innocent you were, your fate was already chasing you like hounds through the forest, like furies through the soul. One such bloodline, soaked in the divine and doomed from its first breath, belonged to the descendants of Cadmus, founder of Thebes. His story began with a quest for his sister, Europa, who had been stolen by Zeus in the form of a bull. Cadmus searched the world seeking her, but the gods gave him no answer. Finally exhausted and lost, he consulted the oracle of Delphi, who told him to stop looking for Europa. Instead, he was to follow a sacred cow and build a city wherever it lay down to rest. That place became Thebes, but before he could build, he encountered a dragon guardian of a spring, sacred to Ares. Cadmus slew the beast as heroes do. But this was no ordinary creature. Its blood stained the land, and as instructed by Athena, Cadmus planted its teeth into the earth. From that soil rose warriors, armed, angry, screaming. He watched as they fought each other, brothers by birth from blood, until only 5 remained. These became the first citizens of Thebes, but the dragon's death was not forgiven. Ares, enraged at the murder of his sacred beast, cursed Cadmus and all his descendants. Cadmus later lamented, saying, "If the gods love us, why do they punish us?" To which the only answer was silence. His children and grandchildren fell one by one, twisted by fate, tormented by prophecy. His daughter Semele burned alive by the full vision of Zeus. His great-grandson Pentheus torn apart by his own mother under Dionysus's spell. His line spiraled until it produced a name whispered even among the cursed Jocasta. Jocasta, the woman who unknowingly married her own son, Jocasta, mother and wife to Oedipus. From her womb came children who were never meant to exist. Antigone, Ismene, Eteocles, Polynices. Each child bore a piece of the curse like a brand on their soul. The family tree did not grow, it splintered. Eteocles and Polynices, two brothers, fought for the throne of Thebes. They did not settle, they warred. And in the battle both died by each other's hand, a curse of civil blood. Antigone, trying to bury her brother Polynices with honor, defied the king Creon and was sentenced to death. She hanged herself before the gods could intervene. Her fiancé Haman killed himself in grief. His mother in turn took her own life. One death spiraled into many, and the cursed silent patient cold watched it all unfold. Because in Greek myth it is not enough to kill a man, you must unravel everything he loves. Another house equally twisted by divine wrath belonged to the children of Minos, king of Crete. Minos, favored by Poseidon, once received a majestic white bull from the sea. He was meant to sacrifice it to the god, but when he saw its beauty, he kept it for himself and offered a lesser animal in its place. Poseidon was not fooled. The god did not strike Minos dead. He did something worse. He cursed Minos's wife Pasiphae with a consuming desire for the bull. It was madness made flesh. And through this unnatural union, a child was born, the Minotaur. Half man, half bull. Born of lust, born of punishment. A monster locked in a labyrinth, hidden beneath the palace fed with human flesh. Not for crime, but for existence. Minos's daughter Ariadne tried to end the curse. She helped the hero Theseus navigate the labyrinth and kill the Minotaur. She gave him thread to find his way back out. But Theseus, in turn, abandoned her on an island. She had defied her father, loved a stranger, tried to end a curse with hope, and was rewarded with exile. Later, Dionysus would find her and make her a goddess. But the curse had already done its work. Because the Minotaur's death was not the end. It was only another echo in the symphony of suffering that curses create. Even transformations, what seem like miracles, often hide the cruelest curses. Take Arachne, a mortal woman gifted in weaving, so skilled that her tapestries rivaled those of the gods. When asked where she learned such art, she claimed it was her own talent, not a gift from Athena. Hubris. Athena disguised herself and challenged Arachne to a contest. Both wove tapestries. Arachne's work was flawless. She did not weave flattery, but truth depictions of the gods' many crimes and shames, their betrayals, their cruelty. It was too much. Athena, humiliated, tore the tapestry apart. But she did not kill Arachne. No, she cursed her, turned her into a spider, cursed to weave for all eternity. Arachne's descendants still hang in corners of rooms, spinning silk that glistens with forgotten pain. Another transformation curse, Niobe, queen, of Thebes, mother of many children. Too many. So many that she boasted she was greater than Leto, mother of just two, Apollo and Artemis. The twins heard, and they did not forgive. Apollo killed her sons. Artemis killed her daughters. Niobe fled to Mount Sipylus, weeping, wailing, collapsing in grief so profound that her body turned to stone. Even now water trickles from the rocks on that mountain. They say it is Niobe's tears. Some curses are loud, some are carved in silence, but perhaps the darkest curse is one wrapped in love, like the curse of Hera upon Echo. Echo was a mountain nymph, a joyful voice among the woods who loved to talk. Too much, perhaps. When Zeus, ever the deceiver, used Echo to distract Hera from his affairs, Hera cursed her not with death, but with repetition. Echo could no longer speak her own thoughts. She could only repeat the last words she heard. Later she saw Narcissus, the beautiful boy, the doomed lover of his own reflection. She fell in love. She could not tell him. He rejected her, and she faded until only her voice remained. To this day, when you call out in the mountains, she answers, not because she wants to mock you, but because she cannot help it. She was cursed not for crime, but for being used, and for speaking when silence would have been safer. In these stories we see it again and again. Curses are not only punishments, they are reminders of the power of the gods, of the limits of mortals, of the fragile line between love and madness, pride and fall gift and doom. They live in the water we cannot drink the song. We cannot forget the choice we must make, though we know it will break us. And sometimes curses are not ends. They are beginnings. A thread tied to another thread winding deeper into the labyrinth of myth, where no soul walks unmarked and no name survives untouched. If there is one truth that echoes through every dark corner of Greek mythology, it is this: curses never truly end. They survive the death of kings, the fall of cities, the silence of gods. They outlive generations, passed like a sickness from one soul to another, sometimes in blood, sometimes in breath, and sometimes in hope itself. Because the most terrifying curses are not the ones that destroy the body, they are the ones that stain the spirit, that twist the meaning of love, that hollow out joy, that make eternity a mirror no one dares to look into. And no curse speaks to this more deeply than the one born from Pandora. She was not evil. She was not a villain. She was a gift crafted by the gods, sculpted by Hephaestus, given breath by Athena, beauty by Aphrodite, persuasion by Hermes. She was perfect in every way. Except for one flaw, she was made by those who held a grudge. When Prometheus stole fire from Olympus and gifted it to mankind, Zeus did not strike the Titan first. He turned his vengeance to humanity, the recipients of the gift. And so he created Pandora, the first woman, as the perfect vessel of divine consequence. She came bearing a jar, often called a box, in later myths sealed tight and given with a single command: do not open it. But the gods in their wisdom had given her curiosity. She resisted, for a time. But in the stillness of her new life, the silence grew louder than the warning. One day she turned the lid, and out came everything: pain, sickness, war, lies, madness, grief, death. All the miseries that still haunt mankind spilled into the world like ink across a map, staining every corner of the earth. She tried to close it, but it was too late, except one thing remained inside: hope, tiny, glimmering, silent. Some say it was mercy. Others say it was another curse, hope, the thing that keeps us trying when we should surrender. Either way, the world was never the same. And so from one act of curiosity, the curse was cast not on one person or one family, but on all of us. Pandora's curse is the world we live in, and it continues. But even among mortals there are those who carried curses that reached beyond their graves. Take Tiresias, the blind prophet of Thebes. He once stumbled upon two snakes mating and struck them apart with his staff. For this, he was transformed into a woman. Years passed. Then one day he did the same again, separated two mating snakes, and was turned back into a man. This strange cycle caught the attention of Zeus and Hera, who were arguing over a question no mortal should ever answer: who experiences more pleasure in love, man or woman? Tiresias, having lived as both, was asked to decide. He answered truthfully that women feel more. Hera, furious at being contradicted, struck him blind. Zeus, unable to undo the curse, gave him prophecy in compensation. But Tiresias never saw the world again. He saw only its fate. He became the cursed oracle, the man who knew everything but could never change it. He warned Oedipus and was ignored. He saw the fall of cities and could not stop them. His curse was sight without power. And yet worse still are the curses that mock choice itself. Consider Cassandra, daughter of Priam, princess of Troy, beloved by Apollo. He offered her a gift prophecy in exchange for her love. She accepted the gift, then rejected the god. And Apollo, unable to revoke what was given, twisted it instead. Cassandra would see the future, but no one would ever believe her. She foresaw the fall of Troy, the treachery of the horse, her own murder. She screamed warnings until her throat bled, and still no one listened. To speak truth, and be dismissed. That is the curse. We remember her name, not for what she saw, but for how she was silenced. Her voice echoes still in every ignored warning, in every woman told she's hysterical, in every whisper drowned beneath laughter. Cassandra is not a myth. She is a mirror, and the gods they watch. Even now when temples crumble and prayers grow scarce, the curses linger not in lightning bolts or rivers of flame, but in us, in our memories, in our myths, in the stories we can't forget, no matter how far we try to bury them. Because deep down we understand what the ancient Greeks knew, that the world is not just ruled by laws and logic. It is ruled by stories. And stories are not always kind. They are just. They are patient. And when we repeat the mistakes of those who came before us, when we defy wisdom, or scorn love, or reach beyond our place, we invite the old shadows back in. Some may call them superstitions, but others those who feel the weight of dreams they don't understand or suffer consequences that feel too sharp for coincidence they know. They feel the curse. And some curses are beautiful, like Endymion, the mortal man loved by the moon goddess Selene. She wished to preserve him his beauty, his youth. So she asked Zeus to grant him eternal sleep. He never woke again. She visited him night after night, whispering love into his dreams. But he never spoke back. His curse was to sleep through eternity loved, but unreachable, adored, but untouched. An immortal pause, a silent affection. And Selene, glowing in the sky, remained haunted by a man who could never love her back. It is not always wrath that curses. Sometimes it is love itself, because the gods are not human. They do not think in mercy or justice or forgiveness. They think in balance, in power, in poetry. And curses are their most tragic verses. From Heracles driven mad by Hera to kill his own children, then cursed to atone with impossible labors. To Tantalus still reaching for water he can never taste. To Ixion, bound to a spinning wheel of fire for desiring Hera and betraying Zeus's hospitality. To Actaeon, the hunter turned into a stag and torn apart by his own hounds for glimpsing Artemis in her naked form. Each cursed soul carries a story that survives the gods themselves, because in the end curses are not just punishments. They are reminders of what we owe to the divine, of what we risk when we forget humility, of what it means to be human, to suffer, to endure, to hope, even when the box is empty, even when the stone keeps falling, even when the thread runs out. We carry these stories because we carry the warning. The gods may be gone, but the curse lives on. In every tragedy we repeat, in every secret we bury, in every truth we refuse to believe until it's too late. So beware, traveller of myth and memory. The curse is not in the tale, it is in the telling. And once you know it, you are part of it too.